What's going on, guys? Chris Hardenberg here with Joe Pasalacqua, episode number 13 on the movement mindset. Today, we are going to be talking about nutrition, but specifically just some like hot topic diets that we hear about a lot. So keto, intermittent fasting, vegan, vegetarian.
Yeah, the whole point of this is the trendy diets.
Yeah.
Things that popped up, maybe were popular for a little while. Some people still do them.
Yeah.
But we refer to these in nutrition consults as, crash dieting, or maybe like a temporary fix.
Sure. So, we've been doing this for a while. A lot of times, and I'm sure you remember when you used to do the sales consultation, people will come in. You'll hear a lot of the time, "Oh, I know what to do, but I haven't," right? Or, "Oh, I've been doing keto, but so on and so
but
forth."
people don't really truly understand what that means. They just think, "Oh, I'm just eating a lot of red meat." But it's like, but what does that mean?
Right.
Right? Like there's more science that goes behind these.
Right.
And are they effective? They can
be.
Right? Long term, though, they're very, very difficult to follow.
Right. So we looked at keto, intermittent fasting, like I said, vegan, vegetarian. In terms of keto, guys, just to provide some education, essentially keto is like the old Atkins diet, like no carbs, meat, veggies, pretty much eliminating fruit as well. And so the reason why it's in right now, or the rationale behind it, right, is people talk about, all right, hey, you cut your carbs down and that allows you to burn fat.
Yeah. Well, that came with the whole trend of carbs are bad,
Right.
But with no explanation of the different types of, like simple and complex carbs,
Right.
And what the benefit is of like veggies or carbs, but what's the benefit of that? So
Sure.
a lot of the females that we've come across over the last several years, right, the last decade have been, "Oh, I don't have any veggies," and it's crazy to me that some of them wouldn't even eat veggies, right, because it's drilled into their head that carbs make them fat,
right. And so essentially the premise behind the keto diet is you eat so low carb that it puts your body into something called ketosis, which is where your body creates these things called ketones that then utilize it as essentially you would utilize carbs, but coming out of your fat sources. That's the premise. Now the problem with that, guys, is to know and understand if you're actually in ketosis, you only know it if you take blood work. It's the only way to actually know.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that said that they're doing keto ever was doing active blood testing.
Oh, yeah. No. They just found it online. People have said that they've had success with it.
They just assume that they're in ketosis.
Yep.
And I'm sure like if you have an idea,
sure,
but like there's really no true way except unless you get blood work done.
Right. And so you have to do that. And the problem with that, guys, and we're going to get into this at the end of why, spoiler alert, why we don't eliminate any macronutrients in our meal plans is because your brain operates off of carbs. Yeah. And so that's why people who try to do keto get brain fog. And so we don't eliminate carbs because A, your brain operates off of it, and B, we work out pretty hard. And so to work out hard and not fuel your body appropriately to replace the glycogen stores in your muscles and stuff like that, you're going to break down at some point. And so that's why we don't necessarily subscribe to the keto category and why that's probably not best for most of the people coming into the gym.
Of course, really what it comes down to, Chris, right, is, you'll agree with me, is the problem with all the ones that we're going to talk about today is it's very, very difficult for someone to do this long term.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
really the rationale between why we do what we do, is because macro counting is macro counting. You can still eat just about everything, right, within a quality control and a volume control or calorie control. Okay. But you're not worried about like medically, like the timing of certain things is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what we talk about in our consultations and in our program when someone gets started is like, okay, how do we bridge this, or how do we create a sustainable plan, right? You might not follow this specific plan for forever, but how do we bridge it so that you create a lifestyle that you have, a healthy lifestyle going forward, and you know how to eat if you go out somewhere or whatever the case may be, instead of like, okay, I lost those 20 pounds and then I just bounced right back up.
And we've seen it time and time again, right? Where there's like many people or people that, have done this, and I've known done this, and they've had success with intermittent fasting and keto. But the issue is it's never a long-term fix for them.
Right.
I always recommend, if you do something like this, it's a nice transition because you're teaching yourself about nutrition and the nutrition in food, but it's not a long-term sustainable thing.
Right. So the next one I hear a lot is intermittent fasting. For those of you that don't know what intermittent fasting is, it's essentially you don't eat for a certain period of time of your day. So most people will do like a 16-hour fasting cycle or a fasting period. So essentially if you eat dinner at 7, right, you wouldn't eat lunch or I'm sorry, breakfast, and I'm going to do some quick math, 5 until like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty simple. Or if you ate last at 10, you might go a little bit longer than that.
Most people that I've seen is they'll eat dinner 7, 8, 9 o'clock. They don't eat again until noon.
Yes. Yeah. So there's not necessarily anything inherently wrong with that. But the reason why I put this on here is it's not right for everyone. Specifically women, there's a lot that goes on with their hormones that depriving yourself of food for that long is probably not a great idea. There are some people who have really good success with that just because maybe they're not someone who wakes up hungry, or, they're someone who maybe gets to work right away and they're more productive that way. But for folks looking to lose weight, they might start to experience success, but it's short-lived because they haven't formed the foundation of making healthy food choices. So this might be a great way to just have them eat less, you know what I mean? Like someone who doesn't realize how much they're eating in a day, so they're eating a little bit less. But really the trick to intermittent fasting and how people get results, again, going back to macro counting, is like there's still amount of food you should be eating in a day. You're just eating it in less of a window.
Cramming it.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, that's not convenient.
No, it's even, I know you've done consultations like this before, but like people that work, maybe are nurses or work night shift.
Sure.
Right? The conversation is you're still eating the same amount of food while you're awake throughout the day. Typically you're awake longer because you're not sleeping a normal 8 hours or 6 hours during the day, right? If you're working a night shift of 8 to 12 hours.
Right.
But it all goes into that. You're still eating the same calorie count.
Yeah. And again, someone could get results with that. But my biggest thing is I always would say this in consultations, is like someone come in, oh, I'm trying intermittent fasting. It's like, okay, well, what does your day-to-day nutrition even look like? And they explain it to me. It's like, you know what, let's cut the intermittent fasting and focus on eating meat. Let's focus on eating vegetables. Let's focus on getting your carbs from the right places. Like, let's make healthy food choices and make sure you're eating enough for what your goals are. Then 4 months, 6 months, a year down the line, once you've created that base, if you wanted to go back to that, then that's something that makes a little bit more sense. But most people just want to jump to the cool thing before learning to like eat vegetables.
Yeah.
And then the other one I briefly wanted to talk about was people who are vegan and vegetarian. Now, before anyone comes and just like tries to attack us for this, there's nothing wrong with being vegan and vegetarian.
Their diets are fine.
Right. But where a lot of people get it wrong though is, and we've seen this a lot, someone's like, oh, I'm trying to go vegetarian or trying to go vegan, and then they vastly undereat in protein.
Yes.
Because you have to be more creative on where you get it.
You see that a lot in cultural diets.
Yes.
Right? You see that in general.
Yes.
Right? So great example is a chickpea has protein in it.
Sure.
Okay. But the carb aspect outweighs the protein intake.
Sure.
Drastically.
Yeah.
Right. That's why it's difficult to stay within a macro guideline, because you're consuming so many carbs to be able to hit your protein. So they're always undervaluing the protein segment. And just that one example.
Right. And that's where you'll have some people who are athletes or bodybuilders who are vegan or vegetarian, but they're so meticulous in where they get their food choices from. And so if you have goals of leaning out or building muscle, and you want to go vegan or vegetarian, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, it is just a tougher road, or it can be a tougher road than someone who's willing to eat fish or chicken or something.
But again, right? It all comes down to the education piece. The point of those meal plans, if you're going to be vegan or keto or any of these items, you're just going to do basic macro counting. It just comes down to educating yourself on the quality of the food that you're putting in your body to be able to then proceed with whatever direction you feel fit.
Sure.
So for us, the reason why that we've stuck to macro counting, it's really, really simple. Okay. I know that I have to eat this much protein, this much carbs, and this much fat on a daily basis. And this is how it's segmented and broken up. Okay. So whether you are eating meat or you're not, or you're being a vegan or vegetarian, the macro count is still exactly the same.
Right.
So when you keep the simplistic view of nutrition, this is why we've stuck to macro counting, because I know that 6 ounces of chicken equates to this much protein.
Right.
And I know if I have this shake, this is this much. So if I'm on target to do 100 or 120 grams of protein, it's laid out very, very smooth.
Right.
Okay. Without a timing mechanism, because it's just calories in, calories out.
So, the next question is always like, okay, hey, you just talked about those ways of eating, and maybe how they're not ideal, or blanket statement, they're not best for everyone. And a lot of people go to one of those options as a way to eat healthy or lose weight before, again, forming that foundation. What do we do? Right? Super simple. So we have our meal plans like we talked about on a previous podcast. We hit our 3 macronutrients: proteins, carbs, fats. And what most people actually don't realize is there's actually 4 macronutrients. The 4th one's alcohol. Yeah. And we don't recommend that.
Yeah, people don't realize it's its own category.
Yes.
Like that's been something that's fairly new.
Yeah.
I guess it was always labeled in the carb base. And when you talk to people, I pretty typically talk to them as like it's a carb, but it really is its own.
Yeah, it's its own macronutrient. And I tell people all the time, like, that's a macronutrient. Your body has use for fats. It helps regulate your hormones. It has use for carbs. It helps with muscle recovery as well as brain function. And protein as, again, muscle building, as well as a ton of other functions in your body. The only function your body has for alcohol is to get drunk. Yeah. And so, maybe cut that out if you're looking to lose weight. Or it might just be a little bit more difficult. Maybe more fun, but a little more difficult. So we go into, okay, we don't want to eliminate anything. What do we look at? Where are your food choices coming from and how much of each?
Correct.
That's it. And so it's super easy where we want you to eat, like if you were to look at your plate, it should be mostly vegetables. And then you sprinkle in, your protein choices, carb choices, fat choices, depending on what works best for that meal, as well as off of your meal plan if you're one of our gyms. And again, we look to make slow, consistent progress. Like we talked about it on a previous podcast, on our meal plans, diet soda is okay, right? On our initial ones, I should say. That doesn't mean diet soda is actually okay. It's okay for the person who's used to drinking a ton of soda, because we need to understand that this is a behavior change. And if we don't understand that it's a behavior change, it's going to fall just as flat as all the other
correct
meal plans.
It's understanding fatty meats versus non-fatty meats, right? It's just again, we've said it a bunch of times already. All the diet plans, it all comes back to education. And we find that macro counting is the easiest way to educate somebody on a program that we know is going to work.
Yeah. And that's why in the beginning, it's operating off of macros. But like we said, it's like we try to make it stupid simple, where it's like you need 1 serving of this color, 1 serving of 6 ounces. If you're nervous about the scales, about the size of your palm, go off and run. So yeah, if you're someone who's at one of our gyms and you're trying to make some adjustments, you're trying to get to different body composition goals, I would implore you to stay away from Google. And I would instead recommend you go to your general manager, talk to your general manager. We have a ton of different meal plan options available, as well as macro coaching that's coming in the future. And so that's going to set you guys up for success way more than hitting Google and getting bogged down in everything that's on the internet.
Yeah, just like we'll kind of end on this is the point of why, if you're a member of one of our locations and you've gone through the 6 weeks or an internal challenge, or if you participated in something and you've seen the meal plan process, it's very simple. It's color-coded for a reason. I want, a 6-year-old to be able to follow it. That's when we recreated them. That was the whole point. Let's make this so unbelievably easy to where we can educate people so they can continue to progress with their weight loss or weight gain progress.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, appreciate you listening to this. As always, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll see you at the gym.
Peace.